Right, do you want to know how to turn this rusty MX-5 Mark II 1.8 into a beautiful sports car? Welcome to MK Sportscars. Today I'm going to talk you some of the particulars about the donor car, the MX-5 Mark II, that turns it into our RX-5 kit, our factory built car. So today we're starting with this one here. I'm going to talk you through some of the processes, I suppose, and some of the parts that we can try and show you that come from your donor vehicle to make your sports car. Now these are in kit form, in home built. You can build them at home in your garage. We have colleges and universities doing them as well, or we do factory build options on them. But today, more importantly, this. Let's start off with this little beauty. So this is a 1998, based on this Esreg, Mark II 1.8 MX-5. Now there was millions of these made, literally millions, all over the world, so UK, USA, and there's different specs and everything else, but we tend to start with the 1.8, which is the Mark II, and you can also use the Mark 2.5, which goes from any year then, from 1998 up to 2005. And the Mark 2.5, for those of you who want to know who are living in the London or ultra low emission zones, are ULEZ compliant. So onto this donor car here. This was purchased for the sum of around £400. You can get them cheaper, more expensive. You can pay up to £1,500 or £2,000 maybe for your donor vehicle, but you've got to do due diligence. Most importantly is the drivetrain. We're not worried about MOTs or MOT failures because you're going to be stripping this car. So let's start off with the basics. Under the bonnet here, or if you're in America, the hood, as you would call it, we have our 1.8 Mazda engine, NB as it stands, and we are looking to use that as our donor engine, complete with the gearbox that you can't see unfortunately at this moment in time. So it's going to be engine, gearbox, Propshaft and diff that you're going to be taking. Now, most importantly, I don't care if this is rusty or anything under here because I don't care, I'm not going to be using these components. I want to know that this is nice. Now we've gone through all mileage of cars. We've done everything from 60,000 up to 150,000 miles using these cars. So we're going to do a couple of little tests. So first of all, of course, you're going to start it up, making sure that there's none undue noises, shall we say. And you can check the oil, if there's any history with it, check the oil levels, make sure it's clean or not. But I just want to hear if there's any undue knocking noises. This one seems pretty good. It's done quite a few miles actually. No visual smokes coming out the rear. This has done 143,000 miles, which you can see on the clock there. Even smells clean, doesn't smell dirty or anything else, and there's no white smoke which would lead you towards head gasket failures. There's no blue smoke on startup. So they're the sort of basics that you're going to be looking at. Now you can go a bit more comprehensive with the vehicle and do what's known as a compression test if the owner will let you, or you've got the equipment, which will mean pulling out the HT leads, taking out spark plugs and doing a compression test on each cylinder, and you're looking for around about the sort of 180 mark on your compression. But most compression testers have got a green symbol in there to tell you if it's good. So you can check the good compression, check the oil cap, make sure there's nothing mayonnaise-y looking in there. This oil's okay, it's a little bit dirty, but it's actually okay. And it's nice and no problems there in that sense. So that's the basics. Now you can bring a mechanic with you who may be more knowledgeable. These are just basics to give you a guide. Now under here there's some other components that you're going to be using. One of them is this link pipe here with the airflow meter and all the engine bay wiring loop, because this is connected to the ECU. Now you can use that complete loop and strip it, or you can use our brand new Loom and ECU component. That bit you're going to need. We do not need the snorkel bit, we do not need the power steering pumps, we do not need any of the air conditioning stuff, we do not need any of the ABS units, none of those. We do not need the radiator. But we do need, what's down here is the steering link bar, which you can't really see, but there's a steering link bar that goes all the way through and up to your steering column. That you will need because that's a modified component part. Steering rack we don't need. So these parts you can actually sell if they're in good order. You could probably sell on the radiator, the steering rack, the wings, things like this, a strut brace, which you know is a additional part that somebody's purchased and braced it up, and that would then be maybe go to your funds to help build your vehicle. Right, so once you've used the engine, you're happy with the engine, you think it sounds good, it's all nice and clean, and you've revved it, and there's no issues there, that's really good. So then you're going to be using things like, from here, the donor vehicle we're going to be using, you can use the wheels and tyres if you wish to, or you may wish to go to a different thing, which is not on these, which is a new model. The brake discs, so if they're in good order, which these have actually got a small lip on them, but they would be serviceable actually, they would be fine. And you're going to need the upright from this and the caliper. Again, you can use upgrades on this or put new components if you think they're not serviceable. So don't worry about ball joints and things like that. I would really be changing those out. These bottom ball joints, we do use this bottom ball joint, but if it's not serviceable, which generally I would recommend changing that, and we use a new different style one here. But this part here would be your donor part that you would need to be using. Now, there is a couple of variants on this, talking about brakes. So the standard NB comes with a 256mm disc, and the Mark 2.5 generally had a bigger wheel and tyre combination, comes with a 270. So if you're wanting to put 13-inch wheels on, you would need to go for the Mark II disc setup. If you're not worried and you're looking to do a 15-inch wheel, which is like what this has on a donor vehicle, you can run the 270mm, which is the brake upgrade, because that engine produced a little bit more power, somewhere in the region of 150 horsepower, whereas the Mark II was down in the 138 to 140 horsepower. So those are your sort of brake setups that you're going to be stripping from your donor vehicle. Right, now moving along, we're going to go from the front to the rear of the vehicle here. This was the engine at the front, as we said to you, and then we've got the Mazda 5-speed, or it could have a 6-speed gearbox depending on the model you're going for. The sport models tend to have the 6-speed gearbox, and the Mark 2.5s, quite a lot of them also did have that 6-speed option. Now someone has actually made the decat out, have taken it out on this, have decatted it, you can see they've done it, but the catalytic converters would live in here. Now if you can get the catalytic converter, it's the original one, it's something you can sell on, and normally they do fetch a few £100 for a catalytic converter, so that will also add to your fund. So if it's been decatted, it's not an issue because you wouldn't be using it anyway, but it's something that you could then sell on. Now the prop shaft is in here, this is a part you will need, it's just up in here. This will be modified and shortened because at the moment it's too long, but we'll be modifying that for you. And the differential is here, that will come out, which we'll use, and all the drive shafts going out to the rear uprights with the brake discs and the brake pads and the handbrake cables that link all the way up to the handbrake lever, which is in the centre of the vehicle just up here, and you'll be using those as your donor components as well. Now, none of the suspension, wishbones or anything like that, you can pretty much void all of those. So if you want to get happy with the angle grinder to remove all of those, you can remove all of those quite happily and take all the differential out, because normally these ones here can be a little bit of a struggle to get out. They can seize in onto the diff, so make sure you put plenty of penetrating fluid. And also a little top tip, these little nuts here that hold on the prop shaft, really good idea to keep those and reuse those if you can't buy new ones, because sometimes they are hard to get hold of. Right, up in this area here will be your fuel tank, which you can access from inside the vehicle. You will need the fuel pump from the vehicle because we do a modified fuel tank to accommodate that. That's attached from underneath, but I'm just showing you under here a typical example of how you see under your MX-5. Not all of you will get the opportunity to see this. None of the exhaust is needed. All of this section you can actually dispose of or sell on again if you need it. It's in good order. Right, moving on to the interior section, some of the parts that you're going to need. Now you're going to need all the engine loom and accessory loom if you're using the donor parts. That's all under here. You can take all this tunnel out, all the carpeting out here, and access the fuel tank below. In here, there's a couple of things you'll need. The instrument cluster we use. The steering we don't use, but you could sell them on. But in particular, this is a nice and nardy steering wheel. Someone may be able to repurpose that. All the steering pedicles and lights and all this we use from there. The gear knob, the gear lever we use. we also use this buttons here, which is the dimmer switch for the gauges and the fog light. We use that and we make a new surround for using that section, and we also use the hazard light button. That gets repurposed into our dashboard. That's most of what gets used on in here. You can check around, make sure there's anything else in here that could be salvaged or reused, like this nice chrome rollover bar. And if the hood's in good order, these also can fetch at least a couple of £100. If it's in good order and the plastic's in good, can fetch a couple of £100 on the used market. So bear that in mind for all the dole cards, seals and everything else. The handbrake lever, as I said to you earlier, that is a component that you will be reusing and repurposing. Right in the rear of the vehicle, the boot area, there is nothing really we can use other than you'll be taking out the loom and the battery. So in the back here on a Mazda is the battery. So you could reuse this battery if it's in good order and all the cables that come through it. It's unusual obviously to have it in a boot, but that's where they purpose it for it. That's all in there. Tools are optional extra, I think, with this particular vehicle, but that's pretty much all that's going to be coming out of there repurposing. There's nothing really else in there apart from stripping the loom out and access to the fuel tank. And then the one and final thing is, if there's anything that's good on your particular donor vehicle you think you can salvage or sell on, whether it's on a social media or a auction site, this is a good opportunity to reap some of your money back into your project. Most importantly though, make sure you have the documentation, the V5 registration for it, because you will need that when you come to register the vehicle, because all of that vehicle, all those donor parts, then register you and qualify you for an age-related plate. Now, let's get into what all those parts make onto one of our sports cars. Right, here we have an example of a built car which is using a Mazda as a donor vehicle. This has actually got a 2.5, so it's a VVT engine. But I'm going to show you where we've used the donor components. So the front uprights, which we spoke about off the donor vehicle, they are here. We've refurbished them, we've cleaned them, we've used new ball joints. Our particular one is supplied here, and this is a Mazda one at the bottom, and we've used the track rod end. Again, it's a serviceable part, so you'd probably be reusing that. The brake caliper, actually, on this one, the customer has gone for a wheelwood upgrade, but you would be using the standard caliper as well. That's more than sufficient for this vehicle. Moving along here into the engine bay. Now, we showed you the donor vehicle. We've just a little bit of attention to detail and not too much in terms of cost, a little bit of paint. You can reuse and repurpose your donor engine. This is the VVT with a little bit of paint that we've just gone through and fettled, making sure it's nice and clean, the plenum. The exhaust manifold which comes off your donor car, and we produce the link point that joins that for you. Now, all of the coolant pipe kits we can supply for you in kit form, and the gearbox is mated in here to the modified prop shaft, and we'll go to the differential in a minute. The battery would be relocated here, and as I say, you can reuse your donor vehicle battery if need be. Now, it's a bit difficult to see under here, but under here is the airflow meter just tucked in under there that you will use from your donor car, and it's a new air filter that we've used in that area. The steering link bar, which is just on this side here, this is one we modify then. This is a collapsible one and required for a UK IVA compliancy. This particular one we modify for you, so that's why it's important you have that, and that moves all the way through to a familiar, as you will see, steering column which has all the donor components for wipers, that, and then your horn will be in the centre there. This is the instrument binnacle that is from your donor vehicle. We produce a dashboard that quite easily houses that from the rear here, and you can see it fits in quite nicely. It's a very good visibility when you're driving, and it's extremely familiar driving positions, like jumping from your MX-5 into one of our vehicles. Everything's very, very similar. So the gearbox and gear lever, this is the gear knob and the handbrake lever from the Mazda with the cables that run through to the rear of the vehicle here. Now, we'll remove the boot section to show you the rear drivetrain. Now, on the rear is a solid boot box. Right, so on the rear vehicle we do offer an option of a boot box which covers up the rear drivetrain here, but I'll show you on this particular vehicle where all the rear drivetrain sits. Now, In here we have the differential from your Mazda, which we do recommend you support and weld and brace this, and we offer that as a after service, or you can actually supply the plates if you wish to weld them on yourself. This is the fuel filter and fuel bracket that connects into your fuel pump. This comes directly out of the Mazda, and we also have a modified bracket that mates into our tank. Now on the rear here is the rear uprights are down in here. And again, we have the handbrake cables. These are off of the donor going down to the calipers. Again, we've had an upgrade on this particular vehicle, but it would use quite handsomely your discs and your brakes setup. The bushes we supply, we've removed the ones that are currently in there, and we supply the bushes in the kit. And then you have the 2 drive shafts that then run out from your diff to the rear uprights, giving you a full drive chain complete right the way through, because it mounts in as it comes basically out of your vehicle. So your main donor components slotted in, and the chassis and all the engineering has been done to make these fit your donor components. The rest of the components, i.e. the bodywork, the wing stays, the wheels and tyre packages, the seats, the interior, all the roll bar, the chassis, we supply that in a kit form to you with a comprehensive manual that comes with the vehicle. And also there is a couple of upgrades. So we've got this one here, which is the 140 to 150 horsepower engine, depending which series you go for. You can then venture down this particular route, which is like the 250 plus grade, which is then turbocharging your vehicle, which we use this manifold, which is a turbo manifold, bolts directly, and you have a TD04 turbo there, which is off of a Subaru Impreza based vehicle. We do a 13T, or you can go for the bigger 19T, which would need forged internals. So this particular one has had forged bottom end pot in it with a TD04 19T, and we run this now at 340 horsepower. So you've gained 200 horsepower on your stock engine. Now this will then require certain other modifications, which is an intercooler, an oil cooler, an ECU upgrade, injector upgrade, some lead upgrades, and some spark plug upgrades, and a fuel pump upgrade. Because the more power you're putting into the vehicle, the more fuel you need, the more air you need, the cooler you need, and you need a management system to run it. But those are bolt-on upgrades. These are kits we can supply to you. We can also offer you to assemble and fit your turbo kit upgrade in the factory. Now, a couple of different seat options we're talking about here. We've done, this is a padded seat, which is an optional upgrade that we've done on our demo car. Customer's car, these in the standard kit come with a nice, very comfortable actually GLP seat with an optional padded insert there. All the exhaust systems are designed for that, and all of these cars have been designed with the UK IVA in mind. We have shipped these abroad as well. These have gone to other countries. We do have these out in the USA, we have these out in Norway. We have these in several other European countries as well, but if you want to know more information about that, we're going to, at the end there, give you our contact details, and we can happily fill you in with your answer to your questions. Right, well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and hopefully you've understood what the MX-5 here, which is a great car in its own class, and then moving on from a 1-ton car basically to a half-ton car, producing you a much faster car, a lighter weight car in everything that it possibly can do, turning from rust into a sports car. Now, if you want to know more information about the RX-5 range from MK Sportscars, you can hook us up on a phone call, an email, or come and see us here at the factory. Right, and if you didn't catch everything you want to know about the donor parts, then Lewis is going to put a list down in the description now in the comments below. If you want to see some test drive videos, we've got some test drive videos on our YouTube channel here of both the 140, and we've actually got one of a earlier 300 plus horsepower Mazda turbo that we did as well. That's it, guys. Remember to like, share and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you soon.